And now it's time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. And my first letter is from Mrs. Emily Cluley of Falkland Road. Dear Uncle Jack, I adore your show and thank you for answering my question. I have a big Victorian bed that my husband inherited from his grandmum, but most nights he crawls off to sleep in the small bedroom in the small bed we have there. He promises that it's not because I snore, but he won't say why he does, and I'm not sure he even knows. He seems a little sad. What should I do? Dear Emily. May I call you Emily? Your letter is quite touching. You know the answer, don't you? Yes. You see, if he seems a little sad, there's only one possible answer. He's off his joy of it, isn't he? Yes. You must encourage him to take his pills, even if he seems a bit defiant. Take him to a doctor. There's no sense in sleeping in a rickety little bed in a small room when you can sleep in a proper English bed in a proper master bedroom. And quite frankly, even if you did snore, if he's taking his joy, then he should sleep soundly regardless. Just make sure he falls asleep before you do, and you both should be fine. Thank you for writing, Emily, and do keep me posted about your progress. Well, that's a bit of a dreary letter, wasn't it? I'm sorry. Forget I read it, will you? Let's take a look at another one, shall we? This one is from Mrs. Purdy Robbins Handley of Oldfield Park. Dear Uncle Jack, my husband won't take off his happy face at home. He won't even take it off in bed. Is that healthy? He says he has nightmares if he takes it off, but it's a little creepy, in it. She actually wrote in it. And she says, I mean, he could be anyone. Well, Purdy, are you sure he actually is your husband? Well, you can't be too careful these days, can you? No, but seriously, Purdy, we do what it takes to stay happy, don't we? And the happy mask is scientifically sculpted to keep you happy. You see, when your facial muscles are shaped in a smile, well, you can't help feeling happy. Now, normally, I would suggest he take more joy. But some people do have a slight intolerance to joy. Now, if your husband is one of these people, he may just be doing what he needs in order to keep himself up. Certainly, if he's having nightmares without his happy face, well, why on earth should he sleep without it, when he can sleep with it and not have nightmares? So, come on, have a little conjugal consideration and appreciate his good qualities. Assuming he is, after all, not an imposter. Thank you for writing, Purdy. This one is from Poppy Findlay of Twerton Manor. Dear Uncle Jack, I have a lovely row of tulips in front of my house. I should say, I used to have, because they're half gone, and I found a great big pile of tulip tops in the rubbish. Has some animal come and eaten half my tulip bulbs? Is it a badger? How can I catch it and eat it? Well, Poppy, I'm sorry to tell you it's extremely unlikely that you have a badger, given that the tulip tops were placed in the rubbish. I think that you might actually be dealing with a hungry human. Did you know that you can eat tulip bulbs? Yes. Actually, there's a fabulous and hilarious story from the Dutch tulip mania of the 1600s. See, there was this sailor who visited a friend of his, and he saw an onion on his table, and he ate it. Now, it turned out to be a rare tulip bulb worth hundreds of guineas. And he ate it. Can you imagine the kerfuffle that he heard? Well, I hope he enjoyed it. Actually, there's no word what happened to the sailor, but I bet he took the next ship out. Hope he wasn't hanged. Yes. Anyway, do you by chance happen to live near the Garden District? Sometimes the unfortunate souls who live near there come into the village, and, well, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was them that ate your tulip bulbs. But I doubt there's anything you can do about it, except watch your remaining flowers and call the police if you see anyone near them. In the meantime, if you could eat tulip bulbs, you could probably eat the tops too with a bit of cooking. Well, it couldn't hurt anyway, eh? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time, when I hope you'll join us, and we'll answer all your questions about life in Wellington Wells. I'll see you soon. And now it's time for Funny English Customs, the show in which Jack Worthing, that's me, illuminates our jolly island's ancient customs. Now, since the 1st of May is coming soon, let's talk about the ancient tradition of the maypole. Some people claim the maypole was a naughty Roman ritual about, well, we're all grown-ups here, aren't we? But we Brits, well, we've been dancing around the maypole for as long as we've been burning virgins in giant wicker men, haven't we? But we don't really do that anymore, do we? Apparently, though, the custom of men and women wrapping ribbons around the maypole by dancing only dates to Victorian times. It makes sense, doesn't it? Before that, really long ribbons were much too expensive, yes. A lot of ancient customs are really Victorian. For example, the idea that each Scottish clan has its own tartan pattern. Do you know who made that up? The novelist Walter Scott. Wally. Of course, you're liable to work up quite a burning thirst dancing round a maypole, aren't you? What's the perfect drink to put out those fires? Why, Summerisle ale, of course. And the head brewer, Lord Summerisle, as they call him, has brewed up a very special medieval ale to sell only in the first week of May. It's called a gruit. Instead of hops, it's seasoned with marsh rosemary, bog myrtle, and yarrow. Take it from me, Jack Worthing, it's got a delightful twang of peach. You can't get peaches anymore, can you? May Day gruit from Summerisle ale quenches your burning thirst. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again soon for more Uncle Jack. Every now and then, you hear someone talk about downers. What's a downer? Well, a downer is someone who simply isn't taking their joy. This person endangers the mental health of everyone around by bringing them down. He or she may try to draw you into a conversation about long ago events, or he may try to convince you that his life is not happy, or even that your life is not happy. Don't be fooled. The moment you realize you're talking to a downer, you should stop listening to him right away. He needs help, and listening to him won't help anyone. Try this easy test. Are you having a conversation that's bringing you down? Then one of the people who's talking to you is a downer. Or if none of them is a downer, and they all seem as happy as can be, well, then you may be the downer. In that case, don't worry. Immediately excuse yourself and take your joy right away, and you'll be right as rain in no time. You can never be too careful. Well, look at you. What are you doing? Yes, that's right. I'm talking to you. What on earth do you think you're doing? Are you where you should be? Are you doing what you should be doing? Of course you are. Let's face it, there's nowhere we'd rather be and nothing we'd rather be doing than living our lives here and now in Wellington Wells, eh? We're all so fortunate to be proud Englishmen and women, because no matter what we've been through, we're all alive and happy, and so many others are not. I just want you to meditate on that essential fact of our existence. This is Uncle Jack saying, it's easy to smile when you've so much to be thankful for, but just because it's easy, it doesn't mean that it's not true. Well, hello there. exactly are you doing? Yes, you there. This is Uncle Jack talking directly to you. Are you where you belong right now? And are you supposed to be doing that? These are very important questions for all of us. As patriotic citizens of Wellington Wells, it's not enough to just look out for yourself. We all have to look out for each other, and that means asking ourselves these questions every day. Are we where we're supposed to be? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? For if we're all doing our duty, will we preserve and thrive into the future? You never can be too careful. Take it from me, Jack Worthing. Stay where you belong and do what you should be doing, and you never have to worry.
could take these all the time and I wouldn't have any worries. How do you think I used to run the 100 metres?
You murderer!
Do we really have to do this?
There's the one who did it!
Can't we work something out? No? What am I doing?
And now it's time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. And today's first letter is from Rupert Scribner of 12 Spanker Lane. Mr. Scribner asks, Uncle Jack, that's me, is it possible to take too much joy? Well, Mr. Scribner, it is possible, but you really have to work at it. You have to take a great deal of joy before you experience any toxic effects. Joy is quite safe in the short term, and you can take up to 10 pills per day if you're a man of average weight. However, there are side effects, as we all know. Joy not only makes you happy, it suppresses bad old memories. If you take too much, it may temporarily suppress memories that you actually need to get around. Do you have trouble identifying the people in your house, and yet they seem quite friendly and affectionate? Do you find yourself wondering exactly what your house looks like and how to get to it from wherever you are? Does it seem as if the shops and the streets have all been moved around behind your back, and the map that you have in your head of your environment doesn't quite match the one in your memory? Well then, you may have taken rather too much joy. It might be best to ask a friend to take you home so you can sleep it off. All right, good. This one is from Royston Farrell of Meadfold Passage. Dear Mr. Worthing, well, there's no need to call me Mr. Royston. We're all friends here, aren't we? And besides, Mr. Worthing is my father. Anyway, my question is, writes Mr. Farrell, what's all this talk about a joy spiral? Dear Mr. Farrell, the so-called joy spiral is an imaginary syndrome in which you take too much joy, then you forget you've taken your joy, so you take more joy, and then you forget that you've taken that, and so on, and so on, and so on. But Mr. Farrell, I can assure you that no such thing exists as a joy spiral. I mean, you might as well believe in the Tooth Fairy, or Santa Claus, or those people who tell you that we lost the war. It's ridiculous. Long before any such joy spiral catches hold of you, you'll probably pass out, and when you wake up, your memory will be restored. Yes, it's true that you might be a bit confused about where things are, but any passerby will be happy to point you in the right direction. All right, Mr. Farrell? Good, thank you for writing. And, hang on a minute. Ah, a scented envelope. I like those. And this one here is from Mrs. Joan Tamlin Goggin of Shagbear Wood in central Wellington Wells. Mrs. Tamlin Goggin writes, I know we beat the Germans and made them abandon our sceptred isle, but how did we do it? Didn't they have tanks? Mrs. Tamlin Goggin, thank you very much for writing. Yes, it's easy to be confused of those long-gone days, and you're right, indeed they did have tanks, and quite a few of them. And if ever you're inside of the Victory Memorial Camp, you can see those German tanks lined up as if it were 1948. But I'll tell you how we beat them. With English cleverness, English patience, and English fortitude. That's how. If you want more details, and I don't know why you'd want more details, but if you did want more, you can get a wonderful book called Our Glorious Victory by Jack Worthing. Yes, that's me. And it's available in just about every bookstore in Wellington Wells, and it's full of questions from All your favourite wartime heroes, from the generals to the common Tommy, trudging through the mud. But you already know the lesson, Mrs. Tamlin Goggin. Patience and fortitude. Now stop dwelling in the past and enjoy our shine, why don't you? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. I hope this has been informative. Tune in again tomorrow for more fascinating glimpses into the lives of your fellow citizens of Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying, cheerio, and on with your day. I'll see you soon. And now, it's once again time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. Let's see what Rosalie Millay Scott has to say. Wait a second. Do I detect a hint of roses? Oh, Rosalie. If this is a love letter, it's going to be very embarrassing when I read it out in the air. Dear Uncle Jack. Well, that's better, isn't it? Whose uncle are you? Are you my uncle? I don't remember having an uncle. Dear Rosalie, oh, how I wish I were your uncle, because you seem like a lovely girl. But I'm not biologically anybody's uncle. I just feel like I'm an uncle, and many of your fellow viewers feel like I'm their uncle too. So it just sort of grew like dandelions. And you know how difficult it is to uproot dandelions? They just keep growing back, which is lovely because you can eat them. Did you know that? But I digress. The way uncles do, eh? All you need to know, my dear, is that I feel as fond of you as any uncle ever could. And I hope you feel just as fond of me. All right, Rosalie? Good. This one is from... I believe it's from... yes, it's from Dermot Nightingale of Gascoigne House, Upper Borough Walls. Dear Uncle Jack, a few days ago, I saw a bunch of citizens chasing someone down Milk Street. They ran right past me, so naturally I was swept up in the flow, and soon I was chasing the man down the street as well, and I'm pretty sure we caught up with him. But I can't remember what happened next. I think we beat him, but I can't remember if we killed him or not. Do you know who he was, and did we kill him? Do you know why we were chasing him? Well, dear Dermot, I don't think you should worry about this sort of thing. If a whole bunch of citizens were chasing someone down the street, I think we can safely say that that someone did something wrong. After all, there's only one of him. There's lots of you, so you win the vote. Anyway, what's past is past. And we've all done things that weren't perfect. Listen, if we spent all our time worrying about the things that we've done, well, we'd never be able to enjoy our day. So feel better. Pop a few extra joy today, and I bet in the morning you won't even remember what you were so upset about. I'm so glad I was able to help. Well, I did so enjoy hearing from all of you, my dear listeners. Yes, I love these letters. This one is from Mr. Fitzloyd Dix of Monmouth Place. Dear Uncle Jack, I haven't been feeling entirely well these past few days. I feel rather tired, and it's hard to get out of bed. So I asked my husband to get this letter for you. Oh dear, I hope this isn't going to be a medical question. I've already called the doctors once today. No, it isn't. I've noticed an odd thing. On the roof across from my bedroom, I've noticed an awful lot of chickens. They just fly up there and watch me through my open window. The peculiar thing is, they're all black with sharp black beaks, and all they do all day is go caw, caw, caw. Why are there chickens on my neighbour's roof? I've never noticed them there before. Dear Mrs. Dix, I think it's likely that those are not chickens at all, but rather I think they might be crows. Crows are blackbirds that sit on rooftops and caw. Now, they may have noticed that you're not stirring from your bed, and they're there trying to keep you company while you recover. Isn't that sweet of them, eh? But I'm a little bit worried about that open window of yours. You don't want to catch a cold, eh, from the draught? Perhaps you can ask your husband to shut it the next time you see him. And this one is from Cedric Tullett of Oldfield Park. Dear Uncle Jack, this morning I was cleaning up my house and I came across a box of military medals. I'm pretty sure they're my military medals because my father was never in the war because he had a bit of a limp. So they must be mine. I'd like to know what they're for. All I remember during the war was retreating and then the surrender. And then we all took off our uniforms, and that's all I can remember. So how could I have even won one medal? Yes, well, thank you for the very poignant questions, Mr. Tullett. And I, for one, salute you during your service during the war, sir. And I think I can assure you that the next war will be a string of English victories like you've never even imagined. After all, as we all know, the English always win in the end. Good. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. I do hope that you found these letters not only interesting, but useful to you in your own life. Do keep those letters coming. In fact, with Victory Day coming up, please let me know how you're planning to spend the holiday, and the reader with the most amazing plans shall win a prize. Tune in again tomorrow for more cheery answers to your questions about your life in Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying cheerio, and on with your day. I'll see you soon. Hello. Welcome to today's edition of That Tastes Amazing. What is it? This is the show where we help you expand your nutritional horizons. You know, you can eat a lot more things than you've ever dreamt of. And I'm here to show you what. Now, today we're going to talk about the wonderful world of flour extenders and bread substitutes. Of course, a lot of you are already using flour substitutes, and bread doesn't have to be made of wheat flour. Ground barley, for example, is scrumptious. And why wouldn't it be? Barley is the key ingredient in beer. Ha ha ha! Now I've got your attention, haven't I? Making beer is like making tea. You pour hot water over partly sprouted barley grains. But after all this beer tea, it's called wort, by the way, after it's been poured off to ferment into beer, well, there are bags and bags full of used barley. Now, can you believe that people used to feed spent mash to cows? What a waste! I mean, of course, it's not as yummy as it used to be, but there are still a few calories left. All you need to do is grind the used barley into flour in the kind of hand mill that you used to use for coffee beans. Now, if you've already sold your hand mill, barley can be pounded into flour with an ordinary mortar. Now, of course, that'll use and require a lot more elbow grease, like this, but it'll really build up those muscles. Now, once you've got your barley flour, you just jolly well mix it in with wheat flour. If you can get it, that is. See, flour provides the sticky gluten that holds bread together. So the more flour you can mix in, the better. Ideally, the proportions are 1 cup of barley to 1 cup of flour. However, if you really like the taste of barley, you can always mix in 2 cups to 1 cup of flour. It'll have a more crumbly, more cake-like consistency. I love a crumble cake, don't you? You can always eat it in a bowl with a spoon. After all, it's going to look the same when it comes out the other end, isn't it? Well, so much for used barley. Now, if you can still get your hands on a potato flour is another excellent extender for your flour supplies. Very important. You must slice your potatoes as thin as possible, as if you're making crisps. In fact, if you've got oil to fry them in, you can just skip making flour and go right to making crisps. Machine oil will do just as well as fat or grease. But if bread is what you're about, then slice your potato slices until you can break them with your hand. If your oven works, you can dry them in the oven, but a fireplace is just as good. Just make sure you dry them and don't actually cook them. The key is that you don't want a lot of water in your potato flour. Just move them a little bit away from the fire. Now, I'm not actually going to slice this potato because the drying process takes several hours and, well, we haven't got all day, have we?
Oh, yes. I've got plans for you later, Mr. Potato. You've got a date with a hot pot full of boiling oil. Some people seem to think that sawdust is a good flower extender. Well, they're certainly using their English imaginations, aren't they? We've always been good at coming up with clever solutions to just about any problem, eh? It's certainly easy to get sawdust. You just saw some wood. And yes, sawdust will indeed fill you up. It's very slow to digest, which makes for a full tummy all day long. Just make sure it's powdery and not too rough, or it'll irritate your stomach. Do bear in mind that sawdust has surprisingly little nutritional value. Man cannot live on sawdust alone. If you're looking for a better use of sawdust, it's handy to use as a mulch in your garden. It really helps aerate your soil. And if you have a typical Hamlin clay under your house, a bit of sawdust is just the thing to mix in to lighten up that soil. And the same goes for wheat chaff. Fills the tummy, but after a while you'll need to eat something nutritious. Best to dig it into your victory garden where it'll do your vegetables a world of good. Listen to me, this isn't my gardening show, is it? Let's get back to flower extenders. Remember, if you're harvesting wild seeds, they won't contain any joy. And neither will potatoes, unless you've watered them yourself from water out of the tap. And especially sawdust and chaff, they don't have any joy at all. So remember to adjust your dose accordingly. And bear in mind, if sawdust or chaff is all you have, just up your dose of joy a little. They'll fill your tummy, and you won't be at all upset that you're a little bit hungry. You might even forget that you haven't eaten at all. But just get back to real food as soon as you can, and you'll be right as rain. Oh, I'm afraid I've come to the end of our time. This is Uncle Jack wishing you an amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tune in next time when we explore what to do with meat that's gone a bit off. See you soon.
And welcome to today's edition of Well, 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 the show where we talk about how to be your physical best. Now, some of you have written in about feeling malaise and lethargy. Now, these are vague symptoms, and the first thing I can recommend to you is, if you're feeling a bit down in the dumps, pop another joy. Everybody wakes up feeling a little bit down sometimes. I call it waking down. And all you need to know is that you never have to feel bad about feeling bad. In fact, you don't have to put up with it at all. Being in Wellington Wells means never having to say, I'm sorry. Now, thanks to modern English science, we have the perfect fix for the blahs. Never be afraid to up your joy. Only you know how much you need, or just ask a doctor and he'll fix you right up, even if you've got to ask him to. But look, there are some things that joy won't fix, though it will certainly make you feel better about them. Let's say you feel perfectly happy, but you're just having a lot of trouble getting out of bed. What could it be? Ask yourself a few questions. Do you feel pain in your bones? Are you having trouble catching your breath? Do you find that you bruise easily? Are your teeth a little loose in their sockets and you're under 70 years old? Is your mouth often dry? Do you have scorbutic tongue? Other symptoms you might have are red or purple spots of the skin, especially on your legs that look like this. Do you find your muscles are sore even when you haven't been overusing them? Well, you may have scurvy. And congratulations, this is one of our traditional English enemies, and like all traditional English enemies, we've beaten it before, yes, and we'll beat it again. As you know, England has traditionally ruled the seas. Rule, Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Britons never, never, never shall be slaves. And that means that our ships have traditionally been out at sea for long stretches at a time. Sailors used to eat nothing but ship's biscuits and salt pork. I could do with some salt pork right now. But if you eat nothing but, you're going to get sick. You see, your body needs vitamin C. But biscuits and salt pork don't have any vitamin C. So sailors and long English voyagers will get sick. And they didn't have joy to make them feel any better either. Well, a lot of Englishmen put their scientific brains to the challenge, and it was soon discovered that fresh vegetables would cure the problem right away. But how do you get fresh veg on board a boat that's not going to dock for months? Well, Captain James Cook discovered that if you took limes on board, it could cure the sailors. But how do you get sailors to drink lime juice? Well, you put it in their rum, don't you? They're not going to give up their rum, are they? Even if it tastes a bit limey. And once they were drinking their daily rum with lime juice, well, they got to liking it. And that was called grog. Yes, and that's why we Brits are called limeys, because we learned to put limes in our grog. Citrus fruits are just packed with vitamin C. So, why are you getting scurvy when you're not on a boat? Well, I'm afraid some of you have been a bit naughty. You're eating bread and meat, and you're not having your traditional English 2 veg. Some of you aren't even eating your potatoes. Imagine that. Well, bread does not contain vitamin C. And if you're eating millet bread or moss cakes, while they taste perfectly acceptable, they're not good sources of the C. And I'm sad to say, though I've developed quite a taste for it, Victory meat does not contain any vitamin C at all. Canned and preserved meats are generally very poor sources of vitamin C. Now, if you were on Captain Cook's ship discovering Australia, New Zealand, and Hawaii, you'd just have a bit of grog and, well, it'd be right as English rain. But you probably haven't seen a lime or an orange or a lemon in a few years, and, well, neither have I. But not to worry, most fresh meat contains vitamin C too. Lucky rat, they make their own vitamin C. So, if you can get some fresh meat at the butcher, you're all set. And if you can't get fresh meat, then most fresh veg contains lots of vitamin C. Now, you're going to have to restrain your cooking instincts a bit, because if you boil veg until they're nice and gummy, you'll boil out all the C, so make sure you eat some of your veg fresh. Can't get fresh veg? Remember, lots of weeds contain vitamin C. Scurvy grass is named for stopping scurvy in its tracks. Sorrel has 48 milligrams of vitamin C for every 100 grams you eat. Chicory has 24. Clover and dandelions are smashing sources of vitamin C, and they're all around us. In fact, I think it's safe to say that just about anything that's green and grows in the ground contains some vitamin C. So in a pinch, just go round to the neighbours and ask if they'd mind terribly if you ate their tulips. I'm sure they'll be reasonable. And remember, no matter what, make sure you're taking enough joy. There's no excuse anymore for feeling bad. You don't have to. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time when we'll talk about malaria. It's not nearly as bad as it sounds. Most people survive it. This is Dr. Jack Worthing saying my prescription for you is stay well, well, well.
Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. Well, gather round, citizens, gather round, and I'll tell you a bedtime story. Tonight's story is called Little Red Riding Hood. Once, a young woman was told by her older sister to bring a pie and some milk to their mother, who lived in the forest. The young woman was known as Little Red Riding Hood because she was not very tall, and she liked to wear a red cloak that her mother had knitted for her because it went with her red, red hair and her red, red mouth. As she was walking through the forest, a wolf came up to her, for in those days wolves roamed free in the woods. The wolf asked her, "Hello, little English girl. Where are you going?" Little Red Riding Hood was not afraid of wolves, and she had a very good knife in her basket. "I'm going to my mother's house in the woods," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Ah, which path are you taking?" asked the wolf. "The low road or the high road?" "The low road," said Little Red Riding Hood, for it was the shortest. "Ah, then we must short part ways," said the wolf, "for I'm taking the high road." And Little Red Riding Hood took the low road, and the wolf took the high road. But the wolf could travel very fast when he wanted to. And though he was travelling on the high road, running up and down the ridges overlooking the forest, he reaches Little Red Riding Hood's mother's house long before Little Red Riding Hood was even in shouting distance, and while the sun was still high in the sky. "Knock, knock," said the wolf in a not very good imitation of Little Red Riding Hood's voice. "Who's there?" asked Little Red Riding Hood's mother. "It's the Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf. "You don't sound a little bit like my daughter," said Little Red Riding Hood's mother. I'm hoarse and out of breath, for I've been running away from the wolf who lives in the forest. Please, let me in, because I can see him coming for me." "Oh, no," said the wolf. "Well, you'd better come inside," said Little Red Riding Hood's mother, and she opened the door. And the wolf quickly cut her throat and poured her blood into a bottle. He ate most of her, but saved some of the juiciest cuts. These he sliced onto a platter, but he was very good with a knife, even for a wolf. Then the wolf put on the mother's pyjamas and got into bed. I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in tomorrow evening, and I'll tell you the rest of the story of Little Red Riding Hood. It's a lovely story, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest of it. For now, this is Jack Worthing saying good night all, and I'll see you tomorrow.